Happy Friday night, y'all. I hope everyone's doing good. Welcome, you guys. Welcome. I just had to adjust this really quick because I was trying to stream horizontally, but we're just going to do it vertically. I hope everyone is doing great. We'll give everyone a few more people a chance to get on. This is a special solo podcast live stream that I'm doing for you guys because I just came back from one of the most incredible events I've ever attended. It was like 3-4 days nonstop information and power, because knowledge is power, and it was just it was amazing. I was at the Celebrate Your Life conference in it was called Transcendence. Now, typically they'll do them either in Sedona or Phoenix. This one was right in Phoenix, and I was able to attend. The speakers for the event were, many of you may have seen on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's been invited back to do another podcast, which is amazing. Dr. Bruce Lipton, the one and only. Anita Moorjani, who many of you may have seen on my podcast, and many of you may have read her incredible book and know her story. And also, she's new to me, but she's been on the scene for a while. Her name is Dr. Sue Morter, and I was blown away by Sue and the information she provided. It was, needless to say, very much up my alley. I can't believe I'm just being exposed to her work now. So I want to share with you guys all this incredible information. Not all of it, because it would take me a few days, but I'm going to try to summarize some of the most mind-blowing and relevant things, and some of which you guys have probably heard me talk about before. Like Darwin, like a great place to start with the beginning, kind of the instigating incident, as we would say, in storytelling and writing. This was definitely one of the catalysts for the chaos that we see when we look out into the world today, was Darwin's theories, right? Darwin made observations. Darwin made observations before DNA was discovered. Remember that. That's really important to remember. And Darwin's observations were just that. Darwin did this as a hobby. He was an affluent man. Didn't Chris Hansen interview you? No. I think I would remember that, Mr. Mark. No, I don't think. No, Chris Hansen never interviewed me. I should interview him now. So Darwin, right? And people are starting to catch on. I can tell by comments in certain videos that I see where the theory of evolution is mentioned, and people just go on the attack. And you know what? Go on the attack, because the theory of evolution has always been and will always be just that, a theory. You could make a case that, it's observable in fossil records among certain species, but it has absolutely no explanation. It comes up completely short when you're talking about this incredible human race, us, right? And I'm going to go into and explain to you guys why both Bruce, Greg, and I'm going to tie it together with Anita and Dr. Sue, how this incredible belief system that we've been thrust into, that we live in a dog-eat-dog world, that it is survival of the fittest, that this is just how nature operates. All of those belief systems have been deliberately curated by the same people who don't want you to know the truth about your powerful and divine self, and about this world that we live in and where we come from, right? So show your Pokemon cards. I don't have Pokemon cards. My kids do. So this is just unbelievable. When you find out, when you learn that Darwin actually really was making theories based on someone else's theories, and they were simply observations he was making, and then when I almost said elite. I should say, when the parasite class caught wind, hey Yolanda, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. When the parasite class, which is what I call the so-called elite, which you should never call them elite again. My dream in this life is that one of these days, the word parasite class replaces the word elite, and it just becomes so echoed and so loud that wherever these people sit in Switzerland, in their bunkers, in their mansions, that they are now referred to for what they truly are and have always been, the parasite class. That, by the way, I got from my dear friend Gavin Nascimento, who's an incredible researcher and who has been on my podcast, I don't know, 5 times. He's going to come on again soon. Incredible truth teller. So Darwin, right? Now, why would families like the oligarch families of the time see what Darwin had started to theorize and take it and use it? Why? Why would they do that? Because they knew, even back then, the long-standing plan to control 8 billion now, obviously wasn't 8 billion at the time Darwin was writing. It's probably closer to 2 billion. But they knew that to control the masses, they needed to control the belief systems of the masses. They understood that because of, they understood how religion works, how indoctrination works, and what dogma is, and just how effective belief systems are in shaping and controlling a society, right? So what did they do with Darwin? They took some of his theories, keyword, about races being dominant over other races and the competition of those races being natural selection, survival of the fittest. They took all these observations, which of course you can observe some of these things in nature. You know, obviously, a gazelle that is fitter is going to outrun a lion that is not quite as, doesn't have the same prowess as another lioness, right? I mean, that's obviously, but what we know about nature is that it is survival of the most adaptive, right? Adaptations, the ability to adapt is what makes a species survive. And that is also absolutely predominant and observable, you know, within every species. And it really is self-evident. You have to be able to adapt. You can compete all you want. Some of the most incredible predators of our time are gone. It's not because they were not fit or strong. It's because they couldn't adapt, right? And human beings are doing their best to showcase that truth with every move that we make, it seems these days, with the way we're geoengineering, with the way we're giving chemical companies immunity so that they can't get in trouble for poisoning the earth and poisoning us. Every step we make seems to showcase both the folly and the self-fulfilling prophecy of these nonsense theories, right? I shouldn't say nonsense, they're not nonsense. Darwin made some good observations, right? But what is the problem presented to the human race when you have a belief system that your nature is flawed and that it's totally natural for you to step on someone's throat to get to where you're going? What does that say about the human race? If you look out into the world that we're living in and the chaos that we're observing, clearly we have some of our belief systems wrong, right? I think that's quite belligerent and obvious. Walter said, "Hey, Faust, sounds like an awesome seminar. Parasite is an accurate description." Thanks, Walter. Good to see you, brother. You know, so Darwin's theories break down. And let me explain something to you guys. The notion of scarcity, the scarcity mindset that we've all been indoctrinated into in this society, the notion that, well, there's not enough, that there never will be enough, which is what gives us this idea that we have permission to steal. What did we just do in Venezuela? Yeah, we took care of a terrible dictator because America cares so much about democracy. No, we went in and we're gonna steal their resources. We already took $1 trillion of silver. We're gonna steal all their oil and then say it was ours to begin with. We're gonna do what we've always done. We're gonna steal natural resources. Why? Because you got to compete. Because there's not enough for everyone, right? I mean, scarcity mindset, right? I want to tell you guys, I learned from Bruce Lipton about a man named Thomas Malthus. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of Thomas Malthus, but this dude, he started a club. This was 1798, right? He started a club. It was called the Pessimist Club. That was the actual name of the club, right? And the parasite class really loved Thomas's philosophies and theories as well. They were like, this guy, they championed him. They funded him. They made sure his work became public, just like they did with Darwin. By the way, the word dominant species never appeared in Darwin's original writings. In the third, what do you call it? Not rendition, that's just like a song. In the third publication, right, of Darwin's work, they added the word dominant species. That's when they really put forward what they were going to have academia spread to the masses, right? They very methodically curated a belief system, right? Baldy over there, what if I like that? I have no idea where you came from or what you're saying, JMG, but I'm going to need a moderator, I guess. So back to Darwin. Or I'm sorry, back to Thomas Malthus, the Pessimist Club, right? So Thomas Malthus, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of, it's called a Malthusian crisis, right? What was the Malthusian crisis? Thomas Malthus wrote about and stated that there are too many animals and not enough food. He began to put out this concept, this notion that the population is a problem, that there's not going to be enough. So what can we do about that? And the answer was right in nature. They looked, they said, well, there's famine, there's disease, there's plague. What calls the population? What are some of the natural things? And so Thomas Malthus and the parasite class got together and they started to have think tanks are as old as men, and we're going to talk about how old humanity is before this is all over as well. But what did they say? Well, they said, well, we know that people tend to die more in certain conditions, like swampy, wet conditions. So if we put the poor people in slums, there's more of a chance they'll get disease and die. Less people. This whole notion of population control was born. What would later become eugenics was born of this era. It was born of Darwin. It was born of Thomas Malthus and the Malthusian crisis that he created and that the parasite class loved. They just loved it. They championed it. They were thrilled to. This was what they were looking for. They had always felt themselves aloof, and they had indoctrinated their family generation after generation into believing that the rest of us, absolutely expendable resources. And that because of their great wealth that they've had for hundreds and hundreds of years, that they have given themselves the role of custodian, which is a bad word because it implies care, but rulers over the rest of us. Somehow that is their birthright. That's where the notion of blue bloods comes from, and the royals, and all these people who fall into this category, who in a very real way have dehumanized the rest of us, because the only way you can do what you've done to people with no regard for life is if you have lost that part of your humanity. You have to dehumanize, and that comes from indoctrination. Bill Gates talks openly in an interview, which you can find in the National Archives, about his father and mother sitting down with him when he was 10 years old, 10, and telling him the importance of what? Not compassion, not, being kind, not anything that would be spiritual or even religious. Talking to him about the importance of eugenics. Eugenics. Eugenics is the notion that one race of people is superior to another. It just so happens that eugenics has a long history of saying that happens to be the white race and the people with all the money. Those are typically the superior genes, right? And this is going to tie into, I could talk about just this subject for hours and days and weeks, because you're going to see a through line from history, starting at Darwin, all the way up to the eugenics movements that started popping up in the United States, and that the Germans were like, this is a great idea, and the Zionists were like, wait, we already do this. Everybody who wanted to seclude and make themselves aloof loved eugenics. And guess what Zionism is at its core? It is a eugenics political movement. It states that due to a real estate deal that God made, and many, many writings that God did, apparently with his own right hand, or lefty, maybe he was southpaw, he wrote that the Israeli people are the chosen people and therefore can do whatever the fuck they want to whoever the fuck they want. That is eugenics because of their race, which then we get into the whole Semitic, anti-Semitic ridiculousness nonsense anyway, considering the people doing this are not Semitic and the people getting killed are. Anyway, don't let me lose track and start talking about that, or I may never get back on track again. So let's get back to Darwin, okay? Darwin is a philosophy, a belief system that the human race has sadly adopted, because the world would not look the way it was if we didn't, and clearly we've got a few things very confused. So it's BS, it's bullshit, but it's also a belief system, right? BS means both things. It means a belief system and it also means bullshit, right? So what I've learned with my studies from Bruce and from Greg Braden, and the one of the many truths that they've been keeping from us, right, is our true origins. Darwin's theory breaks down when it comes to human beings because there is no missing link. And they're never going to find a missing link. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the human beings in our current DNA, we showed up on the planet 200,000 years ago, 250,000 years ago at most, right? Now, that is a anthropological fact. We know that from the fossil records. And what's crazy is, and we're going to get into genes a little bit, we're going to talk about a little bit of everything, but this was discovered in, I think it was 1987, and it wasn't even published till 2002 or something like that, because they don't really want you to start thinking about this. But science teaches us that we are of the same ancestry of Neanderthal, of Lucy, and all those. You see like the human family tree, and it's always dotted, which means inferred. That means that they suspect. It means they have no physical proof, And then they tell us, well, we used to be like the apes. Really? And we're direct descendants of Neanderthal. Really? But the theory of evolution states that you evolve from something. We were on the planet with Neanderthals. In fact, men were, I'm just going to make this big assumption, men were interbreeding with Neanderthal women. I'm not going to say Neanderthal women were wait, did I say that right? You know what I'm saying? It was definitely a human male thing. I'm guessing. I'm guessing that Neanderthal women didn't just find men incredibly attractive and decide they wanted to try to communicate, which they couldn't do like us. And I'm going to explain to you why. So we developed the ability to, through the Human Genome Project, we can look at our genes now. Incredible. If only Darwin could have seen this. And guess what we were able to do? We were able to take the bones of a 40,000-year-old, what we call Cro-Magnon, and that is an anatomically modern human, right? That's the same thing. Cro-Magnon equals anatomically modern human. And so we took the bone marrow of this body we found, incredibly preserved 40,000 years ago, and we were able to compare it with some Neanderthal DNA that we found. And guess what we found? They don't interlap the way we thought they would. First of all, we know now that we were both on the planet at the same time. So there goes the evolution theory right there. But they also found when they looked at, so the same way we can look at genes, right? The same way we can look at genes of an animal, we can look at our own, right? So when you look at the human genome, right? First of all, understand that they mapped the human genomes. The prescription drug companies were the ones who ponied up for that. And they did that not because they cared about humanity, not because they wanted to find anything, because they wanted to be able to prescribe a drug for every gene. And that's why they put all their money into it, and they said, oh, it's still too expensive. They said, oh, well, tell the taxpayers to pay it. So the taxpayers paid it, of course, still happening. And what they found was pretty mind-blowing. It was so mind-blowing that they don't know how to write about it. And mainstream science continues to pretend like this isn't a scientific fact. And this is what they found. Now, I know many of you guys have heard of telomeres, right? Now, there's a telomere at the end of each chromosome. And we've learned to gauge longevity through the length of telomeres, right? But every chromosome is uniquely uniformed, right? So when we're looking at the DNA, of the chromosomes of a species like Neanderthal, and we're related to almost every species on the planet. We share DNA with every species on the planet. We share DNA with the fruit fly. You know why? We all have the same mother, Earth. That's why. Of course, we share DNA. Even octopus, who aren't, I don't think, from this planet, share some DNA with us. But this is incredible. Now, this is what they found. And this is like the fact that this isn't being taught and explored in every campus all the way down to elementary school is mind-blowing. But it tells you a lot about what the parasite class wants you to know about your origins and what they would rather you not contemplate, right? So just like we can look at the genes of, one of our house pets, which, by the way, we've made dogs the most diverse animal on the planet. Mankind has done that. Yeah, that's crazy. But so back to humans. When you look at human chromosomes, right, they all have this uniform signature, except for two of them. Two of them have this crazy and quite obvious, like the way that, and you can read about these studies, this has been published in journals, they found that the telomeres were fused together like this. And we know what that looks like now that we have been gene editing ourselves. But when they first came upon this, it's like, let me explain this to you. It's like looking at a grapefruit that has been cut in half and perfectly seamlessly sealed with a pineapple. You can see the difference. The difference is obvious. The difference is not natural. And to anybody who's looking at these chromosomes, specifically I'm speaking about chromosome 2 in the human race and chromosome 7. If you look at these two chromosomes, it's like you're looking at this crazy graft fusion, because every other telomere is typical to the rest of life on this planet. The telomeres are at the end, but on these two chromosomes, the telomeres have been fused in the middle, which is inexplicably, there's no natural phenomenon that does that. And it's quite obviously grafted, it's fused. And scientists can only write that they don't know how this ancient fusion occurred, because especially at the time, we had no technology to even, conceive of this. We're starting to now with our gene editing and our technology and understanding of DNA. But back then when they wrote this, when they first discovered this, they realized it didn't. And get this. Guess what those two chromosomes do? They give us our unique consciousness and humanity. Chromosome 7 is what gives us our ability to enjoy and sing and create music. Chromosome 2 gives us our ability for complex language, our emotional and the right part of our brain, right? All the deep-seated artistry, the emotions, they come from these two. Now, if it was just one chromosome, you could say, okay, there must be like a crazy random, but it's two, and they do something very specific, and that specificity speaks to a intelligence that is beyond what we typically think of. Because it cannot be an accident that we showed up on this planet the same way we are right now, 200,000 years ago, and that it was those two tweaks, those two fusions to our DNA, which make us so uniquely sentient on this planet and so incredibly emotional and all the things that make us human. And the reason why they don't talk about this experiment is because it speaks to your divinity. It speaks to your divine birthright. It speaks to the divine intelligence that created us. If this was taught, it would start to do away with a lot of the dogmatic religious teachings about our origins that we're constantly bombarded with. It would do away with a lot of the limited thinking about why we're here. And, people believe that we're some cosmic fluke and we're some set of random mutations, which is impossible, by the way. They ran the statistics on humans being a random mutation of evolution, and the statistics came back clear. That's fucking impossible. Seriously, that's what the odds say. What makes us human is no accident. It is a divine intelligence. And this is where I'm going to segue into what else I learned at this incredible event and why it's so important. So we started talking about scarcity. We started talking about, the belief systems, the corporate cutthroat mantras that we've all been stuffed down our throats from the times we were little. And, religion tells us that, there's something wrong with us. We have original sin, and just to be born, we need a baptism just to be, pure, right? All these notions, these degradations of our beliefs about ourselves, they're not by accident, my friends. They are to keep us pigeonholed, keep us thinking that we're not worthy of everything that we have inherited with this beautiful planet, because this planet has more than enough for everybody. And if everybody understood that and believed that way, this whole world would recreate itself overnight, because we are creating this. We're creating our own lives, and we're co-consciously creating the world that we see about us. And so when you look out into the world and you see the chaos and the strife, if you know what this tattoo is, for those of you watching and not just listening, this is an ice crystal, a water crystal. Dr. Emoto, a Japanese scientist, figured out that if you speak a word into water, water will hold a memory of that sentiment. Thank you so much for this train of thought. I'm right there with you. Thank you, Beam. Good to have you with me. So Dr. Emoto, and you could look his work up, they used to say he was pseudoscience. Now we have dozens of scientists who have replicated his work. It's not pseudoscience. Water does have a memory. And your body is what? What do we tell us all the time? Oh, your body's made up of water. That's right, your cells, your cellular structure is made up of water. And this tattoo, I'm baring my chest for those of you who are listening, you should probably take a peek. This tattoo is a water crystal of what the words thank you and I love you mean, or when they're said and then that water is flash frozen. I took the two crystals and I turned them into one because it made them perfectly symmetrical for the tattoo that I wanted. But imagine that. So what you are exposed to is affecting your biology. What you believe is affecting your biology. This is Bruce Lipton's life's work. Bruce Lipton was looking at Petri dish cells, and he discovered that it didn't matter what he put in it. The cells responded to the environment, not to the genes or to the DNA. And so this is going to transition into what else I want to talk about. The fact that we are creators. We are creating all of this. And we're not victims. We're not victims of a theory of evolution. We have the capacity and the divine birthright to create our own reality. And we're responsible for it. And so when you look out into the world and you see the mess, I always just say to myself, chaos before coherence, right? Because that is in fact the way it works. You know, there is chaos, or what appears to be chaos, before a coherence can set in, right? If you've ever seen those sound, what do they call them? Sinograms? You know, they change the hertz, and as they raise the frequency, and the sand bubbles on top of it, then it takes shape, right? And in the middle, it looks like chaos. But once the frequency creates coherence, we see something beautiful and geometric, right? And so I'm sharing that because your belief systems are of the utmost importance, and they've been hijacked. For the most part, this entire human race shares that in common. Our ideas of ourselves. Cymatics, thank you, Beam. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. I didn't get enough sleep last night, for sure. I was like, oh man, this is going to be an interesting live stream. No, but I am here. So I think the biggest conspiracy that we're all living through is undoubtedly this plan to keep us from understanding and realizing our own divinity. Because there is a divine intelligence that is in each and every one of us. It is the same thing that is giving our heart the capacity to beat without a single thought. 50 trillion cells in your body. Good evening, Rock. 50 trillion cells in your body, right? And do you have to stop and like make plans and make sure that any portion of those cells are operating? No, you don't. That is also your divine birthright, right? Hold on a second. Let me take care of this clown real quick. There we go. Thank you. Bye-bye, Illuminator. Go and bother someone else's live stream. Anyway, so what was I saying? I was talking about cymatics, and then Darwin. I started to. This is where eugenics comes from, guys. Eugenics is one of the reason why America's one of the sickest, most obese nations on the planet. The reason why we have no true regulation in food and medicine is because it's the eugenicists running the damn show, my friends. You have Bill Gates, an outspoken eugenicist, who went from stealing computer software and making billions off it to what? To a sudden philanthropist care about the children of Africa being given medical interventions, you know? Yeah, it's crazy because you would want to keep a eugenicist as far away from your children, particularly if they're of color, as you can, right? If you were wise and you understood what that meant and how powerful these people are when they use their resources to do this. This is one of the biggest challenges we're facing today. And we have people, you know, like RFK Jr., who understands the scale of the problem, but he's like, I don't know how to put it. You know, it's like, have you ever had laser tattoo removal surgery? They fire a laser into the ink. And if the ink is black, then over time, the body starts to be able to recycle it and metabolize it and get rid of it, right? And I feel like that's kind of what he's doing. You know, he's trying to attack this thing and he's making a little bit of progress with the schedule of those said medical mandatory, what do I want to call them without getting red flagged? You guys know what I'm referring to. They start with the letter V. And you know, but this is all the reason why it's totally okay for industry to do this is because the people at the very top of it are outspoken eugenicists. And they have been since the dawn of industry. 1914, the first eugenicist movement was held where? New York City. Everyone attended. Winston Churchill flew in. Everybody who was anybody attended. It was all the rave. And America was the champion of it. The Germans got the idea from America. And of course, the Zionists have always had it. Don't get me started about those two things, or we will never get back on track. Brother, greetings from America, Venezuela. Merida of Venezuela. Thank you, brother. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. So, back to divinity, right? I made a bunch of notes, guys, because some things became so clear to me at this conference, right? And that is, what's up, Port Charlotte, Florida? Welcome. Are you guys bracing for the southern, wait, what were they calling it? The storm that they're whipping up for us? Yeah. Nothing suspicious. Nothing suspicious at all about winter storms that behave in a way that we don't typically ever see, ever. Wow. Get ready, Texas. Get ready, Florida. I mean, I'm in Georgia, but I don't buy into the bullshit, you know. That's all it is, guys. So some of the things that became really, really belligerently clear to me at this conference was these tactics that they use to keep us divided, to keep us distracted, they're all to keep us distracted from the same thing. And that is the same thing I've been telling you why they don't speak the truth about our DNA, about our chromosomes, about our origins on this planet. It's because all roads lead back to Rome, and Rome, in this case, means your divinity. We are, in a very real way, intergalactic royalty. Our genes, our DNA is an incredible hybridization of some of the most advanced and profound races to ever come together for an experiment like this. And that's why so many people are watching us. That's why we have so many ships in the sky. That's why there's so much communication going on between us and extra-dimensionals, extraterrestrials, and there has been. There has been for a long time. But it's been increasing because we're at a tipping point. You know, the truth can only be held from the people so long. And the incredible and coordinated cover-up of our past and how it affects our future is ongoing, right? What just happened? What happened to the MIT scientist, right? What happened to the MIT scientist just the other day? He was gunned down, right? Let me take care of that DoorDash delivery guy. This is great. Removing trolls is actually pretty easy, even from a phone. Anyway, the MIT scientist who solved for nuclear fusion, clean energy. You think he's the first to do it? You think he's the first to get offed for it? This is what they do. And so the chaos they create with the mass shootings, with the assassinations, with the terrorist events, with everything that steals your attention on the news in a negative and derogatory way, that is all designed to keep you from yourself. And the less attention you can pay it, the less fear you give into, because what is scarcity? Scarcity equals fear. Scarcity is insecurity. It is a lack of faith, a lack of trust. It is a lack of knowledge about yourself because thank you, Green Thumb, welcome. Because you have every ability to create the most abundant life that you can believe. In fact, if you know you can, you won't have to believe. You can skip right over the belief part if you know it in your heart. Because what you know will manifest. That is your divine birthright. And they know that. They know that. That's how we got the world the way it looks. This is the world that they want. They want us distracted. They're energy vampires, you know? I hate to use the word battle and good versus evil, But there is a struggle between what, the people who want to, the very few people who want to keep everyone controlled, docile, and working so that they can continue to sit at the top with their feet up. Meanwhile, this planet we were born of it so that we could all sit with our feet up. We can all pursue whatever it is we love to do. That is this world that we were given heaven on earth. And it was taken from us in a very real way. Dude, get out of your head. Two human beings can't keep a secret. I beg to differ, Steve. Conspiracies are what rule this planet, dude. I don't know what world you're living in. Two humans can't keep a secret. Oh, okay, so there was no 9/11 conspiracy? There was no JFK conspiracy to knock off a president? No, there's no Charlie Kirk conspiracy. What are you talking about? Secrets are kept all the time. The more money at stake, the more secrets are kept. And the secrets I'm talking about are worth trillions. Yeah, because the V industry, they're looking out for your health. That's not a conspiracy at all. Yeah, you should go get another boost, Steve. The last couple didn't make it all the way to your brain yet. Go get another mRNA. Special little, just so you're protected for the next wave of you know what, I mean, I heard it's coming. It's coming with this storm, dude. You should get there soon. I got no time for morons. Okay, anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I was talking about idiots and trolls. And then, who's seen The Princess Bride? Fantastic movie. Remember when he's reading to Fred Savage? Fred Savage stays home from school because he's sick? Anyway, pop cultures are part of my MO. So this is what I learned, right? I learned that energy is, it's the greatest commodity we have. It's the only true currency. And so I want to share with you guys, because I've been to this incredible conference more than once, and I've collected so many things that I want to share with you guys that you can readily apply to your life right now, right? Talking about Darwin, talking about genes and all that, that's important. But a lot of us are just trying to figure out how we're going to make this month's rent. A lot of us are trying to figure out how we're going to save enough money to put our kids through school and what our kids are going to do even if they get out of school. Like this world seems like it's going to hell in a handbag, but that's not necessarily true. That's just the way it looks. And that's the way they want you to see it, right? But some things that you can think about and maybe make a note of that you can use in your everyday life. Energy is life. We only have so much of it in this physical form. And when it expires, we move on, Death is another great conspiracy because that's the one thing we can't do, my friends. The one thing we can't do is stop existing. We can't die. This physical form may not be forever, but your soul, your spirit, you're not going anywhere. You're going to continue on infinity, period. And that should be comforting because that means that you got as many chances as you need to do everything you want to do, as many chances as you want to get it right in whatever pursuit that your soul is going for, right? You got nothing but truth, humor, and positive viewpoints. Let the haters hate. Thank you, Green Thumb. I appreciate that, my friend, more than you know. Thank you so much. So energy, think about energy like a checkbook, right? And if you're not good at accounting, you'll understand it's simple calculations. Think of energy like a checkbook, identify what it is that you're engaging in and ask yourself, am I getting the return? Am I getting the return on my energy? Is it worth my time? How am I managing my time? Is what I'm doing with it, is it this live stream that I'm doing, it's a great use of my time because afterwards I feel good. It's a good exchange, I don't feel like I got ripped off, right? What are you engaging in? What is it doing to your account balance, your energy balance, right? And when you're going about your day, you can stop and think, why am I doom scrolling? Why am I in a dialogue comment fight with some fool on Facebook. What am I doing right now with my energy? I'm like, "Urgh." You know, I'm growling at this person who I don't even know. I'm arguing over something I have no chance of actually, you know, getting them to think about in any critical way. And look, we all do it. We all do it. But some of these little things, they could be so helpful, you know. If you think about energy and you think, remember the checkbook. What are you doing with your money, with your currency? How are you spending it? Are you getting a return on your money, on your investment, whatever it is, right? Something to keep in mind, right? Another thing, many of us have to learn this the hard way, me included. Don't pick a fight that you can't win, right? Don't engage. You know, I learned this the hard way during the health debacle of 2020. Don't pick a fight you can't win. You know, I was shouting and screaming and trying to warn everyone, and I lost friends. I had family block me on Facebook. Everything I said, if it had been, and of course I wasn't alone. There was so many people trying to warn everyone what they were doing, because some of us could see right through their bullshit, and other people were caught up in fear. Why create a scarcity mindset? Why bolster Darwin and Thomas Malthus? Fear is their primary weapon of choice, and they use it constantly. It is one fear campaign after the next, and guess what we don't do very well when we're in fear? Well, think. For starters, we can't think when we're in fear. We cannot think logically. You know why? Well, because all the blood in our brain retreats and goes to the extremities when we're afraid. And they did that so effectively in 2020, and they continue to do it. But don't pick a fight. You know, my point with that is I kept shouting and shouting and posting and posting. And it was a fight that I couldn't win, and it cost me. I lost dear friends who have never come around. Friends who used to go out of their way to come to, you know, I used to be an actor. I used to have a movie premiere. They would go from LA to San Diego just to see my film. And I had cousins who all of a sudden I thought they deleted their account. Turns out people don't want to hear it, right? It was a fight that I can't win. Do I regret it? No, I don't. But I do miss my friends. I do miss those people who have never come back around. I guess they've never forgiven me. For what? I don't know. Being right? You know, I don't know. People used to say to me, you know, when Facebook let me back on 120 days later, when I could post again, no one would ever see my posts on Facebook again. No one still can see my posts on Facebook. I post, so I have a page, but ain't nobody could see it for the most part. That's true. I'm in that trying to help. Yeah, I hear you, Walter. I think many of us lost friends, not only through, you know, the way that they treated it, but also, you know, in our lives. People dropped out, and I have friends who lost family, who they couldn't go see in the hospital. Brothers, fathers, uncles, mothers. Imagine the audacity of these people who claim to be in authority doing that. Let's just hope that they never try it again. And if they do, all of us are awake and conscious and simply put our feet up and go back to our lives, because there would have never been a health debacle in 2020 if everyone was like, what? I'm going to work. I'm going out. I'm going to do what I do. I'm not doing this. There's nothing to be scared of. There would have been no health crisis. I'm going to keep calling it that, because the algorithms are like Big Brother. They're watching me. I love that song, Private Eyes by, what's that 80s song? I forgot who sung it. One of you guys will remember. So, another thing I learned, this was so helpful. This really blew my mind, right? Dr. Sue Morter whose work I've just becoming exposed to. I just picked up her book, and I'm working to have her on my podcast. She said, you know, she talked a little bit about duality and about unity. And she said that, you know, you can't have one foot in duality and then hope for unity. It doesn't work like that. You have to see the truth of that, right? You know, and she talked about like, so if you're someone who keeps getting triggered by the same person, the same events, the same things over and over, instead of letting that continue and banging your head against the wall and saying, when are they going to change? When are they going to change? She said something really profound. She said, first, she said, dang right, Daryl. Yeah, that's right, Walter. I knew you would know it, brother. That's right, Daryl Hall and John Oak. Great song, Private Eyes Are Watching You. Remember? Anybody? I know Walter does. So she said, here's a practice. Now, she gave us a lot of techniques, which were really, really simple to use in these situations. But one of them, she said, you know, check in with your body, you know, feel into like, where in your body can you feel that when that trigger happens? You know, like, is it your heart? Is it your throat? Some people want to speak up and they've got into the terrible habit of just not advocating for themselves, not speaking up for themselves. And that builds, and that will come out in a venomous way later on in relationships with people you love. That's why it's so important to learn to advocate for yourself, to speak your truth, to be honest about how you feel, you know, and allow those feelings. You can allow those feelings without being swept away by them, right? You can observe them, allow them their expression, and there's always a healthy way to express your emotions. It's when we deny, we stamp down, we don't want to look, that's when we get in trouble, right? So she said, ask yourself, where in my body does this trigger me? And then she said, because that's the place in your body that you want to build the circuitry that you need so that this thing does not impact you the same way it did if it happens again. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. That is such a profound and awesome thing to do, you know, because we all have things, people, events, we all have repetitive and cyclical things that kind of really kind of get us, you know, why? Like, and so what can you do in yourself that will help you build the circuitry you need so that when that thing happens again, yeah, it does not affect you. It does not have the same impact on you because that impact is an impact on your biology. Remember the water crystal, right? All those cortisol, adrenal glands, we get addicted to those just like we do any other drugs. That's why I won't say it because the big brother is listening, but you know, that one drug that the parasite class loves that is harvested. Starts with the letter A, ends with the letter E. You know, like there's a reason why they get addicted to that. What I'm saying is you can get addicted to raging, you can get addicted to stress. All of these glands are biochemical and we get swept away by them, right? But I just thought that was so profound that's something I can do. I can work on that. And you can mentally rehearse. Once you don't even have to be able to locate it in the body, but what you can do is say, you know what? This may happen again. And next time, this is how I'm going to be. And then I close my eyes and I begin to mentally rehearse. And guess what? When you do that, your mind does not know the difference between a full-on mental rehearsal and actually experiencing it. You are creating a blueprint for yourself for the next time it happens. We have these incredible neurons, you know, we have mirror neurons. We can embody and imagine and begin to experience what we see others do with these incredible mirror neurons. We have what have been nicknamed rose neurons, 40,000 neurons in our heart, right? You said we have incredible neurons. Do we also have Neurons? Do we also have credible? I believe we do, Funk. I think we have both credible and incredible. The ones I'm trying to refer to are the incredible ones. I don't mess around with the credible ones, I think those are everywhere, but we have a few that are really cool that are very unique to the human species, like these rose neurons in our heart. People are like, wow. So you're saying that the heart has an ability to communicate neurologically with the mind, and guess where else? With the gut. Now, how many of you have heard the expression, I know it by heart. I know it in my heart. I just had a gut feeling. That's you had a feeling that, first of all, thoughts and feelings are very cyclical, right? A thought can lead to a feeling, and a feeling can lead to a thought, and sometimes it's virtually impossible for a human being to know the difference, right? Hold on a second. Let me take care of Funk here. He seems to be lost. There we go. He obviously has no idea who he's talking to. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, thoughts and feelings, being cyclical, right? So they do. One feeds the other. You can have a thought and it can lead to a feeling, or you can have a feeling and it can lead to a thought, right? How is he still here? Hold on a second. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Just taking care of trolls as they pop up. I just put Funked Congress in timeout for 86,000 seconds. Why YouTube is measuring the timeout in seconds is beyond me. But I wanted to leave you guys with those couple things. Energy is life. Remember the checkbook. Remember the truth about Darwin. Look into some of those incredible experiments and journals that I mentioned earlier in the podcast. Sorry, I'm getting bombarded with messages here. And check out my podcast for you guys. I'm going to have Dr. Sue Morter on. We're in correspondence right now. Greg Braden is someone who I would love to have on, but he's so busy going on Joe Rogan's 12 million following podcast. But Greg, I will have Greg on. It's a matter of time. I've been on retreat with Greg. I've spoken to him many times. I love some of these cats. Anita Morjani I've had on. We had an incredible podcast together. If you guys haven't seen that, go back a few episodes and check. Her story is completely mind-blowing. But that's what I got for you guys tonight. If you guys have any questions or you want me to rehash any part of what I was saying, if you're just getting on, if you missed something, hit me with it now. I hope I didn't let me see. Is the chat still going? Yeah. Okay, just checking. I was just trying to get rid of the trolls. I don't have a moderator. I don't typically do my podcasts live stream like this, but if anybody has any questions about anything I mentioned, please, by all means. And I'm gonna make sure that I covered everything I wanted to. Yeah. Oh, I know what else I wanted to share with you guys. One last thing, Yolanda. Thank you so much for sticking with me. The other thing that Dr. Sue Morter said is, she proposed a question. She said, can you get used to being present without your attitude? Without, without your problems? Can you get used to being present without them? And I was like, wow, damn, we do that. I mean, even when we're present, we're present, but we cling to our attitudes, right? We bring our personality into our presence naturally, but at the same time, most of us, there's things about our personality that maybe we're not so proud of, maybe we could soften into a little bit. And I realized that too. And I try to be present, as much as I can with the people in my life who I love. And sometimes I bring my problems. Sometimes I bring my attitude. I do. And I thought, wow, can I be present in a way that is soft and truly open and caring and loving without my, oh shit, I got to get this done by Monday, and without my, oh man, all right, let's play this game. Let's hurry up, without that little undertow, right? that was the last thing I wanted to share with me. She said, you can't stand in duality and wish for unity. And I think she called that right. But it's been an absolute pleasure to share all this with you guys. It's the very, very abridged version of some of the amazing things I learned last weekend at the Celebrate Your Life conference. Much more to come. So if you're not subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe. Check me out on Instagram. I'm the one Faustito, the one Faustito, and then there's the Far Out with Faust IG account. But if no one has any questions, then I'm going to give you guys all a big kiss and a hug, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. And God bless you guys. And have a great weekend. And if you're in the South, buy duct tape and get ready for a geoengineered winter wonderland. No, I doubt it'll be anything. Don't believe the hype. It's a sequel. I love you guys. Thank you.